failing justice, a movement on the rise. Former law enforcers now breaking ties. Unique perspectives where commitment lies. Upholding justice against the lows and highs. From the beat to the streets, we pave the way. Challenging the system every single day. No acceptance of the status quo, we say. This is failing justice. Let's slay.
Welcome to the Failing Justice podcast. I am your host, as always, Justin Carlson. I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. This show has been it's grown, and I am happy on the journey that I'm on and the trajectory of the show. And I just want to thank each and every one of you because I know I have some loyal listeners out there. And if you're new, I want to thank you for tuning in and giving Failing Justice a listen and an opportunity. I think you might find this information and content informative. And I would ask that all of you just please like us, share us, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, because we are really trying to do a good deed here at Failing Justice. And today, I like to just get right into it. I have a very special guest with me. I want to introduce him. And then what I'll do is after I introduce him, I'm going to turn it over to him because I always say the best way to do an introduction is let that person introduce themselves. But I have Jermaine Archer with me today. And Jermaine has dedicated his life to three passions: arts, education, and philanthropy, helping people. He speaks, reads, and writes Spanish and French. He co-created the first and only Chinese Mandarin language course to be taught inside a New York State prison. His education accomplishments include a bachelor's in science, master's in professional studies, and a paralegal certification. As a sentence mitigation paralegal for the Legal Aid Society of Westchester County, he located programs and services deemed necessary by the courts to mitigate clients' sentences and prides himself on never failing to keep a client out of jail or prison. He later joined a national foundation that supports community-based organizations working to end the over-criminalization of Black and Brown communities. And after serving 22 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, Jermaine had his wrongful conviction overturned. In his personal time, Jermaine is proud to serve on the board of directors for Rehabilitation Through the Arts, a program that helped him cope with his wrongful incarceration and regularly conducts Know Your Rights training for justice impacted youths. Jermaine, if I got anything wrong, my friend, I want you to correct it. But that's my introduction to you. I'm so proud to have you. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Justin. You didn't get anything wrong. I appreciate that. I appreciate your attention to details. Hello, everybody. My name is Jermaine Archer, and I would like to begin by thanking you, Justin, because I don't think people understand that they have a platform sometime in life. Law enforcement, judges, district attorneys. Most people are advocates, and they come from the advocacy or lobbying world. But I think as a part of the system, whatever that may be, public defender, people have platforms. And for you to take this and understand this work and what's going on in this world and decide to become a voice for change, I commend you. It's not too many people I've seen who have certain opportunities in life and, so to speak, risk those opportunities to expose what's really going on. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
No, I appreciate those kind words, Jermaine. I do look at it as an opportunity that a higher being than myself uh, put in my lap and gave me this opportunity. And I'm a big believer that all things are connected and all things happen for a reason. I appreciate your kind words on that front. We can talk about me anytime during this show. I don't want to take up the spotlight. I mean, because it's people like you that I really enjoy having on my show because um, I do have an audience that is heavy on law enforcement, heavy on um, prosecution, prosecutors, judges. I have a lot of people that listen to my show, and I think sometimes, and the reason I know this is fact is because it happened to me. I didn't know the other side to the legal system. The legal system that you have experienced, I didn't realize that stuff existed. My world was putting people behind bars, and I didn't fully understand the implications of that. Now I have to always go out and say I know there's a space for incarceration that should be there. You know, there are some people that should be there, but the things that you advocate for, or against, mass incarcerations, wrongful convictions, we were never taught that stuff as cops, and so when I got dropped into that world, uh, my mind was blown. My entire foundation was shaken, and even to this day, I'm still learning. But I'm very happy. I'm proud to be in this space, and so, tell us, Jermaine, about your journey. What first sparked your passion for what you do now? I know you probably have a pretty long, extensive journey, but kind of go into that if you would, and however you want to do that.
I mean, I think it all boils back to my wrongful incarceration. So I remember one day a guy explained to me inside Sing Sing. He said most of us don't even recognize the system until we're caught up in it, and then it's too late. And as I became more educated, politically aware, conscious, I'm reading history books. I started learning about things like redlining and zoning and the GI Bill and so many of these um American dreams that people talk about that never trickled down. The trickle down economics didn't work. It didn't come to the ghetto, it didn't come to the neighborhood, it didn't come to African American neighborhoods. And I started realizing, like most places, there are more churches than schools in my neighborhood. There are more liquor stores than fruit stands in my neighborhood. Like, these things are designed. And when I went to college, I studied environmental psychology and environmental science. And I realized that somebody didn't just come and decide to open a liquor store. Like, this was a design. This was a blueprint. I've been to places like the Hamptons. You can't find a liquor store in every corner. I've been to Hollywood. There's not a liquor store in every corner. So I started putting these things together and realized I am part of a scheme, and I didn't even know it. So when the guy said that you don't even understand the system until you're caught up in it, I started doing more research. I educated myself even more. I enrolled in college. I studied law. I became a paralegal. And I realized, like, language is so tricky. Everyone has a constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel. But what exactly that means is to be determined by whatever judge you are in front of at the moment. So you and I can go in front of the same judge with the same set of circumstances and come out with different endings, so to speak, because of the nature of it. And I don't think most of the pieces of this system that are working, the officers, the district attorneys, I don't even think they understand that they're part of a system because they operate in silos most of the time. The officer doesn't realize that he's connected to the Court of Appeals judge and they're connected to the parole officers. Everyone is doing something that's feeding the system. So when I got involved in it, I decided I'm in prison for something I didn't do. I don't want to see that happen anywhere else. I know it's easier to entertain people than it is to educate them, especially the youth. I have to use this energy that I got, this swag, this ability to connect with young people in order to reach the largest possible audience. And it's ironic that I talk about the system when I talk about judges and officers. And when I was released from prison, when I earned my parole, even after maintaining my innocence, letting them know I didn't commit the offense, which normally gets you denied, but I was released. And a judge that I met on the inside, he used to come inside a lot. He would come in and watch the youth assistance program. I was an inside coordinator of the youth assistance program. We would spend a day with young people. It's like Scare Straight, but we're not trying to scare them.
Right.
And then he would come in for the college graduations and see me. I worked in the college office. I was an administrative clerk. I would be organizing and helping to run the events. And then he came in for these other events that we put on under Voices from Within, which was called Choices, choosing healthier options in confronting every situation. And he noticed every time he saw me, I was in a leadership role. So one day I'm walking down the street and I get released and I'm walking my little dog and the parole calls me. And of course I'm nervous because I haven't been home 3 weeks yet. Why is parole calling me? And they said that this judge called them and said for me to call this lady at a law firm and they got a job for me. Had no idea it was going to happen, had no idea he knew I was coming home. So I used that story to show people you can make an impact on people's life. Had he not done that, I don't know where I would be today. I'm not going to say he saved my life, but he put me on a fast track. I came home, I got a job right away that I didn't even apply for, I didn't even know existed. And that allowed me to show who I am, what I can do to other people. And then I transition on to another job. I'm able to support my family. I'm able to do, I didn't have the obstacles. And I try to explain this to a lot of people. Even if you're not going to help me, just don't get in my way. But this man went out of his way to really help me. And that made sure that reinforced in me the desire to help even more people. So I volunteered at something called Youth Shelter of Westchester. I volunteered with SNUG, which is an anti-violence group, guns spelled backward. I volunteered with 914 United. I volunteered with all of these Westchester-based organizations because I realized I can afford to do it now. I have a job that pays me. I can dedicate this time and these resources to making sure that these young people have a credible messenger and someone they can relate to. Not nobody that says, listen, I did 22 years. You better listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. That doesn't work. It never works in real life. So what I try to do is talk to them, connect with them, let them know I didn't get to raise my children. I didn't get to see them grow up. And I've had clients when I was at Legal Aid that would call me 4 a.m. and I would show up. And it interfered with my relationships because people were like, yo, you're getting too close. You got to, you just came home. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be another adult that failed them. And I've never failed a client in legal aid. No one ever went to jail or prison because I wasn't able to locate the services he or she needed.
Well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I think, would you say that your journey and the opportunities that were afforded to you, would you agree that that's pretty rare for somebody who's been incarcerated?
For as long as I have been, absolutely. It is rare, the opportunities that I have. And there's two things that factor in heavily. One, I had family my entire incarceration. Most people don't have that for that length of time. Like there's a big difference when you're doing time and you have love in your life. You don't get as bitter as some other people get. People, when you have nothing but chaos and uniforms, you're only dealing with people with uniforms, whether they got the inmate incarcerated people uniforms or the staff uniform. Like it's almost like living in the military your entire life for 20 straight years. That does something to a person. I
Right.
had family. I had people support me my entire incarceration. So that was huge. I had a wife that was there. I had a mother that was there. I had children. So that big. And the second part is I did my time in Sing Sing Correctional Facility. And Sing Sing is equivalent to San Quentin. There's college, there's universities, there's Carnegie Hall, there's anything you want. There's language programs, there's health programs, health education. Like if you, I call Sing Sing heaven and hell. There's drugs and there's sex, and you can find whatever you want. If you're looking for trouble, you can find some trouble. But if you're looking for a way to stay out of trouble, there's so many things to become. I used to say to distract myself. So I started out in the pre-college program and the HIV awareness program, and then I started teaching that program. And then I got into men's health, and I got into Osborne Connected Couples. Like there's so many programs that I was just taking just to be busy. And I didn't realize by the time I was released, or by the time I was nearing release, all of those programs played a role in my development. Every single one, whether it was alternatives to violence, because I was able to look at the situation, I don't have to feel like someone punked me now. I can let it go, nonviolent conflict resolution. It doesn't make me soft. There were so many programs, the Rehabilitation Through the Arts program, being a member of the steering committee, actually taught me leadership skills. Just being someone giving you a title doesn't make you what they call you. You have to earn that, especially in prison. So I had to learn how to interact with people and actually earn their respect and earn their belief and earn their investment into the program. And it goes on and on. I worked in the law library and I learned law. I learned the application of law and the theory of law. And like every program I was a part of, Osborne saved my relationship with my children because I got to watch them grow up in the family center. So all of those organizations, all of those programs played a part. And that's why it was rare, because I had the family. I also had the fact that I did my time in Sing Sing, and the fact that I was wrongly convicted and determined to make something of this time. I wasn't just going to do 22 years and come home and pick back up life. I had to continue living. I learned that about 4 or 5 years in. All of this time count.
And the reason I asked you that question is because you had mentioned this judge, And you and I both know, and things, this is something that I try to stress to those that I educate in my audience, is that when you get out of prison, I mean, you started before you got out of prison, but typically when somebody gets out of prison, whether they were wrongfully convicted or not, or for something they actually did, but they're trying to get out and make something of their life, opportunities aren't afforded to them. And it sounds to me like you were really blessed to have somebody within the system, okay, which we also know is rare, have somebody within the system give you an opportunity, see your potential, see your value. Because I can tell you, just especially from a former cop, former detective standpoint, so many times when cops encounter people on the street who has a past, who's been locked up, um, a lot of times they look at that on the wrong side. They look at it as, oh, well, this person must be up to no good. This person has a past. It's hard to get housing. It's hard to get employment. And it sounds to me that you had somebody amazing that was within the system and that had the right mindset, that justice impacted individuals are not second class citizens, that just because they've been to prison, made a mistake, or even, were wrongfully, whatever the case may be, that just because they had been incarcerated does not mean that they can't come out of behind those walls and behind those bars and be a productive member of society. And I can tell you, I mean, I'll sit here and be vulnerable and honest. We, we were talking a little bit off camera. We just weren't taught that, man. I had to learn that on my own. And again, I'm so grateful that I did, because that's why I'm doing this today. It's because I'm trying to educate um, others that work within the system um,
I would
about.
love to pick up on that thought because a Supreme Court justice said back in like the 70s, sunlight is the best disinfectant. I feel like exposure is the best transformational aspect or the best item that can transform people. I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that this was a bleeding heart leftist liberal judge who was just, as we like to say, about that life. No, what happened was he was invited into the prison one time to watch the youth assistance program because he's a sitting judge. And they invited him to come in, and he was blown away not by how the men had transformed their lives, but by how that thought never occurred to him. He never thought what happens after I send someone to prison. So the program is designed to keep young people, to help them make better decisions, but it also showcases what people have done with their lives in the 10, 20, 30 years they've been away. And there's a selection process. You don't just get anybody in the program. You have to fit the criteria. You have to show that you're really on that path to rehabilitation. And it kind of blew him away. And he spoke with my coordinator, the civilian, and said, you think it would be okay if I brought the district attorney in? And then he brought the district attorney in. And the district attorney who was prosecuting people, this is the district attorney prosecuting people, said the same thing. Like, I'm used to seeing the same person I sentenced. I don't
Mhm.
think about how they've grown and how they've matured. And the district attorney said something that blew me away, because we were actually talking at that time about Joe Biden. And I said, Joe Biden wrote the crime bill. And he said, yeah, but are you the same person you were 25 years ago? And I was like, wow, because I'm sitting here talking a little bit bad about Biden. And he was like,
Yeah.
people, this is the district attorney saying people can change. Like, you've changed, right? I've
Yeah.
changed. I'm not the same person I was. So that district attorney made it policy that all graduating, newly enrolled assistant district attorneys had to visit the youth assistance program in Sing Sing before they started practicing, before they started recommending sentences and recommendations and everything. And that was huge. And that was all on the strength that one judge accepted the invitation and realized, I need to share this. And this is not a guy, like I said, this is not not somebody that's been advocating or lobbying. No, he came there and realized, I'm sending people to prison and I never think about them again. I should be considering this. Like, So that I just wanted to share that because to me it was a transformational moment for us on the inside, but it was more proof positive to the thought that exposure. He just sat with us and saw us as people. Those are the best compliments someone incarcerated could get when somebody comes in from the outside. I sat with Warren Buffett. I sat with someone from the Koch Foundation, the Koch brothers. I don't remember his name. I sat with Steve Forbes. I've sat with some of the richest, most powerful people. I mean, we could talk about Ice T, and we could talk about it was so many people that came, and the biggest compliment we get is when they be like, I would have never even knew you were incarcerated if you didn't have that green uniform on. Because we just connect. We sit down in the room, we get something to eat, and we talk. And it's like, wow, I had in my mind some big, scary guys who talk rough and were dangerous. And you come in prison and you realize, no, that's sensationalism. That's Oz. That's prison break. That's not real life.
And
Yeah.
you're right, man. Going back, I like the word that you used, exposure, and that's why I do what I do now, because I had that aha moment. I tell this story often, and sometimes I feel like I repeat it too much, but it is really, it's not the turning point for me as far as realizing. Like I have two stories. One, and I'll make it brief because everybody's heard it a million times. I have a whole
I
podcast.
haven't heard it, and I was going to ask you about it. So
Well, so because it's not about me, but that's why I'll just be super brief. And the first episode of this podcast, which was horribly produced because I did it from a kitchen table with, it was awful, but whatever. I've grown so much since then. But the very first episode of this podcast is it's called A Wrongful Indictment. And so I was working as a major crimes detective, and I worked it was an aggravated robbery. This kid had gotten shot, and there was somebody present in the back of the house when this was going down. He was friends with the suspect, with the person that actually did the shooting. When he heard the commotion, he was legitimately asleep. He came out the back room. He was like, "What's going on?" And he was defending the victim. He told his friend, he was like, "Hey, leave him alone, man. Give him his stuff back. Let him go," because what was happening was the suspect was trying to rob the victim, and his name's PJ. PJ came out of the back room, and PJ was like, "Yo, let this dude go, man. Leave him alone." Well, his friend ended up shooting the kid, right? Um, thank the stars above that the kid actually lived, and I was able to go talk to him, and the kid was like, "Yeah, man, PJ was there. He came out the back room, man. He was defending me." And so I was like, okay, so I need to find PJ. Well, found PJ. He came in willingly, him and his mom. He sat down in the interview room with me, and he was like, I mean, he was shedding tears. He was like, "I know I was in the wrong place at the wrong time." He's like, "But I swear to God, I didn't know this was going to happen. Um, and I know I've been in trouble before, so you probably don't believe me." I said, "PJ, I believe you, man." I said, "You're right. Wrong place, wrong time, but lessons learned." I said, "I'm not going to charge you." I said, luckily the victim lived." I said, "If the victim didn't live, this would be a totally different story, but he was vouching for you. He told me the same thing you're telling me." So I wrote this report up. We found the actual suspect. We ended up arresting him, because he did shoot him. And so I sent the report to the district attorney's office, and I completely precluded PJ. I did mention, that he was present, but during my interview, he came in. He said, "I was there, wrong place, wrong time, but I didn't have anything to do with this." I wrote in the report clear as day that the victim corroborated his story and that he doesn't need to be charged. And so I gave him my word. I sent that to the district attorney's office. Now, Jermaine, here's a crazy plot twist about this. I worked in Palestine, Texas, Anderson County. If you haven't heard that by now, let me remind you. Robert Robertson in Texas is on death row right now, and they're trying to they're trying to work that out through the courts. The same county that convicted him was the same county I worked in. The same county now, the current sitting district attorney that is still trying to push his execution through. That is the district attorney that I'm about to talk about.
Got it.
So, back to the story. I sent the case to the district attorney's office, and I didn't think anything else of it. A couple months later, I get a call. It's from my police chief. He's like, "Hey, you need to call the district attorney and have a conversation because PJ PJ's mom has called. Apparently, he's been arrested for an aggravated robbery, and she's saying that you said that you weren't going to charge him, but he's sitting over there right now on a grand jury indictment." So I'm just like, I'm kind of mind blown at this point, man. So I call the district attorney, and the district attorney says, why did you tell this family that I wasn't going to that PJ wasn't going to be charged or indicted? I said, well, because he didn't do anything. I said, you have my case file, you have everything, even my notes. I sent you everything. Because I'm just mind blown, man. I'm like, did you even read this report? Because if you read the report, how could you indict this kid? So somehow, they sent this to grand jury, and somehow they indicted PJ Barksdale for an aggravated robbery when it was in black and white, and also on recording what he said, his involvement or lack thereof, and they indicted him.
With the
And so,
with the victim's corroboration
yes,
and the arresting officer's report recommendation.
absolutely. And so we're on this phone conversation. Again, I always say it mysteriously disappeared. All of our phone conversations are recorded, but it disappeared somehow. And I told her, I was like, and she had her assistant in there, the first assistant, and they were just, man, they were beating me up on the phone, telling me that I didn't have the right and that they had the final say so. And I'm just like, look, I said, I can't control what you did. I said, but I'll tell you this. If and when this goes to court and you subpoena me and I come in there, I said, my testimony is not going to reflect what you want it to reflect. And we'll just have to see what happens.
Mhm.
She's saying, so are you saying we need to drop this case? I said, that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, Jermaine, here's the crazy part about it. And maybe it's not so crazy. It was crazy to me at the time, because my world was shaking. There was a lot of political stuff happening behind the scenes that I had no knowledge of, man. I was trying to do my job. So there was a lot of political stuff happening behind the scenes involving PJ's mom and a prominent doctor in town and the mayor. And there was so much stuff happening. And I didn't know, but I believe that was the driving force to them. They were basically trying to retaliate against PJ's mom. I fully believe that. I can't prove it, but nothing else makes sense. Um, Especially to indict somebody when you have a detective saying, yeah, there's no need to indict him. So when that happened, okay, my foundation was totally shaken. I was like, holy hell. I can't believe this is happening. So then I began to create my plan uh, to leave law enforcement, because shortly after that, I started seeing some retaliations and things started happening to me.
Mhm.
And the truth is, I was just kind of scared on what would happen. So I formulated my plan and I left. I got out on my own, and I started exposing this stuff. And there, man, I was frightened. I thought they were going to indict me at one point.
Mhm.
And so then I was out of law enforcement for 2 years, and I decided, I was like, I don't know if I'm done. I don't know if I'm done. I want to get back in. So I got back in it for 9 months, 3 hours away in a completely different area. And it was there that I realized it's the same. Nothing's different here than over there.
Mhm.
And I started to expose some things that were going on at that department. I mean, wrong things. I mean, we're talking violation of people's rights, misappropriation of funds, and I'm just like, this is crazy. And it was while I was at that particular department, my last department, I saw that the Center for American and International Law in Plano, Texas, was holding a wrongful conviction training day, and they were inviting cops. I was like, this is interesting. Um, I wanna go check this out. Well, I asked my administration if I can go, and what do you think they said? They said no. I was like, oh, I'm going anyway. So I did. I went anyway. And it was there that I met several exonerees, but one that stood out to me was Richard Miles. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but Richard was exonerated in Texas for a murder that he didn't commit in Dallas, Texas. And Richard was telling his story, and I'm a cop. I got a gun and badge on my hip. I'm just like, so that for me reaffirmed everything that I had already been thinking. I'm like, okay, this stuff is really happening. And then I did some deep dives into it. And I realized that it's a complete epidemic. And then it just led me into other things, reentry programs, because Richard has Miles of Freedom in Texas. And so I was like, if Richard can come out of prison and change his life the way he has changed his life, and start this organization, how many people are locked up right now that just need a second chance, that need somebody to um, be an advocate? And so I started getting real interested in programs with inside prisons. Um, and I'm just a big supporter of this stuff now. That's a very short version of my story, but luckily the district attorney back to PJ, they ended up dropping that case. Thank God. They still got him on something else. They sent the kid to prison for 10 years for having Xanax in his pocket.
Wow.
Okay. For having Xanax in his pocket, pills, but walking in a correction facility the same night he was arrested for the warrant, he had Xanax in his pocket. And they gave him 10 years for that. So I've been advocating for his release. I've written the parole board. I've worked with his mom. And finally, man, after about 2 years, he got paroled. He's out now. But I look at him and I see the system isn't designed to help him succeed.
At all.
He's been paroled back into the same county that
Mhm.
is extremely corrupt, and they know that his mom did a podcast with me. They know, they've been vocal about the injustice that happened to him, and I fear for him. And so, um, again, that's my story in a nutshell. But it's just,
Again, I have to commend you on stepping out on that because I know it's not easy. I have a couple of law enforcement friends who have been retaliated. One just came home from jail for
mm,
something. I may connect you guys, but he ended up in a bar and there was a fight and somebody hit a girl and the girl's friend was with him and they got involved and eventually, force was used, as you would say, in law enforcement. Force was used because the guy struck a girl. There was nothing made of it until they realized he was involved and he had already raised some alarms about certain practices that was going on. So they looked at him as a snitch and then they charged him. Like it was something I had never heard about before. But maybe after this we could follow up and I could connect you with him. He's still appealing his conviction. I think he got 6 months. Stuff you wouldn't believe. An officer gets into a fight with a guy who just punched a girl in a bar and he gets convicted of assault.
yeah.
But it's because of what was happening. And I
No,
wanted to make a couple of points, though. One point I wanted to make was I love the name of failing justice because it calls it out. It calls it for what it is. Failing justice. When I came home from prison after 22 years, I went in when Princess Diana died, and I came home in the middle of COVID. So those are my
wow.
bookings. That tells you how long I was gone. Plus, I was on the run for a year, so you got to count all that. Um, the when I came home, within 3 days, I had the opportunity to get whatever kind of gun I wanted. Literally. Didn't have a job yet. Didn't have any, I barely got my ID. All the things that are legal weren't really available. They weren't readily available. A job, a place to live, all these things weren't available. But the guns were there, the drugs were there. I bring this up to say I can be gone for 22 years and come home and still get my hands on either crack cocaine, heroin, or the drug of the day, whatever it is, because it's in my community, just like those liquor stores. You know what I can't get? Penicillin. Why not? If we have the drug problem, because they can control what they want to control. I can't find penicillin on the black market. I can't go get penicillin. And I'm saying this from experience. Like, I had something, I didn't want to go to the doctor. I had co-pays. I don't want to bill. Maybe I could get some bootleg penicillin. I mean, I've been gone this long and I can get heroin, right? And I can get all this other stuff. Why can't I find penicillin? Because it's by design. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. The second thing, the district attorney doesn't surprise me, because in my case, and I'm gonna, certain names I haven't named because I don't want to like the judge, I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know how he feels about it. You know, some people don't want to be exposed. But
I respect
District
that.
Attorney Eric Gonzalez of Kings County, Brooklyn, where I was wrongly arrested, framed, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced, he knows, and everyone in the district attorney's office, as well as the police department, they all know I did not commit the crime. But I had a history from the late 80s, early 90s. By the time this happened, I was on a different path. I had children. I was doing the right thing. It didn't matter. Most of the people from my peer age group were incarcerated or dead. And I guess I was the last one. Someone got killed. It's easy to put it on a black or brown body in the community because no one's really going to make a big deal. When they turned over evidence in 2015 that shows they had to break the rules, they broke the law to convict me. They paid somebody and they didn't tell us about it. Not only did they not tell us, they lied about it. They said we never paid him. We never gave him anything, but they gave him money. 2015, we got our hands on this document. They still not sure how. They still denied it until I was released and I filed a motion, and that motion took basically 4 years because it was this year. 2020 I came home, 2021 I filed a motion. The motion took 3 years before a judge finally saw through the bullshit. And the judge was like, yo, one, it's a good chance he didn't commit this crime at all. There's no evidence on him. All the evidence is manufactured and fabricated. And two, you broke the rules. You violated his constitutional rights. So I'm overturning the conviction. So what does the DA do? They can't retry me because it's overturned on constitutional grounds. So what he does is appeals. So now he's appealing this. This can go another 2 years. This is just causing more harm indiscriminately, intentionally, because he knows that's the process. He knows this process much better than me. I can't turn around and say, Your Honor, I want to expedite an appeal. You know, this is the system. This is how the wheels of justice, they turn very slow in your favor. If they want to lock you up, that happens overnight. But if you want to get exonerated or anything, those things take time. And he's still causing this harm. And I don't have a problem calling him out by name because when people treat me like we are already enemies, people say, yo, you don't want to piss them off. He's treating me like he's already pissed off. So I'm not worried about it. Like, I've been fighting against this person since Kenneth Thompson passed away. When Kenneth Thompson was alive, he created something called a conviction review unit. He created that in Kings County. He was exonerating people at a record pace that I think the system didn't like. Now, I'm not going to say there's a conspiracy to the fact that he died, but I will say since he died, that pace slowed down dramatically. And I was in that lineup, making it up to the top of that line. And then all of a sudden he died. And then he died in like, I want to say 2016, 2017, something like that. I was in the conviction review unit in 2015. Everyone was getting decisions within 8 to 12 months. I never got a decision. They just let me wait it out and I came home and they didn't think I would fight. And I'm still fighting to this day. So it's clearly about failing justice. In my situation, it's a little more harder because we're in New York. Everyone is supposed to be progressives and everyone is reforming. But, you know, this guy picks and chooses who he wants to exonerate, who he wants to let the conviction overturn, and who he wants to fight. And I have no reason that I can fathom in my mind why he has it against me the way he does. But everyone understands that's involved in this now. He clearly has something against you because this is unprecedented. Like, it doesn't make sense. The judge ruled on constitutional grounds. He didn't even explain his grounds for appealing. He just put in the notice of appeal to pause everything. That's all.
Let me ask you, just so my audience can understand too, when you say the district attorney is appealing the judge's decision, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean you would, like, if the Court of Appeals overturned it, would that mean you immediately go back?
No.
Or do you get a new trial? Can you kind of explain that process, like what that looks like?
Okay, so we're at the point now where we filed a motion. If we lost, we would have needed permission to appeal. If the DA loses, the district attorney, they have a right to appeal. So I'm at the Supreme Court. Higher than the Supreme Court is the appellate division. They appeal to the appellate division, which means they're going to try to argue and articulate why the judge's decision to overturn my case was erroneous. Now, it would never send me back to prison because I was already home. I did my time. I'm off parole. Everything is over, which is another thing that blows people's mind. Like, you did the time, you satisfied parole. I had someone tell me, even if you did do this crime, your transformation has been so remarkable that why is he still fighting? Like, look who you are today. And it's like, one, he know I didn't do it, but two, I agree with that. He's just in my way. And these are the things, just like that district attorney you talked about in that county. It doesn't matter. They see a person, it's a target, they lock in, it doesn't matter. I don't even think it's personal. It's just it's how the system is designed to work. The system is working the exact way it was designed. So they're going to try to convince a higher judge that the lower court judge made a mistake when they haven't. I mean, I've read it, I've studied law, I've practiced law for over 20 years unofficially and behind bars. It's an airtight decision. My lawyer and I have went over it word by word. Like, it's all this district attorney is doing is wasting time because there is no, you have to, man, I'm talking about the creative ways they tried to fight were to me better than fiction. Like, it was like, well, we never made a deal with the witness, but if we did make a deal with the witness, we never told the witness about it, so he wouldn't have known. And if we did tell the witness about it, we didn't execute the deal until after the trial. It was like, so they were basically trying to cover their bases with everything, and we're just saying, you know what you did. We don't know what you did. You know what you did. All you got to do is tell the court what you did. We know now what you did. But prior to this, you said it never happened. Now we got all these documents. We got 3 by mistake. The judge ordered them to turn over rest. They said there were no more after the judge ordered it. Now there's 8 more documents. Now there's 11 documents. Now we got a full picture of the deal y'all made with this guy, of the benefits you provided him that you swear never happened in closing arguments, in summation, in cross-examination, in colloquy, which is often record conversations with the judge, in appeal briefs, written documents. None of this ever happened. And when someone gets their hand on 3 pieces of paper by mistake, and the judge says there must be more, and my lawyer says there must be more, and we get more, and like I said, it's clear cut. They broke the law. They violated my constitutional rights. But this man still wants to appeal. He just wants to. I don't know what I did. I used to joke with people. I said, maybe I slept with his girlfriend. I don't know. I really don't know. But I don't know this man. He's from the Bronx. I'm from Brooklyn. But he clearly has it out for me. I have a good idea because Mark Hale was running the conviction review unit for years. Mark Hale was like a homicide chief at the time of my case. So he's involved somehow in my case. He was one of the chiefs of the bureau chiefs. And those guys are very good friends. So that's the only thing I can think of, honestly.
That's crazy, man. You had mentioned, I want to go back to something you had mentioned in the beginning, was specifically where you did your time. You mentioned Sing Sing. And what's crazy is, we kind of briefly talked about it before we went on air, but I wanted to come back to it because why is it that and Dan Slepian mentions this in his book, The Sing Sing Files. I have a story about how I met Dan, remarkable human being, by the way. But he had mentioned in his book, how is it that there were so many innocent people in we're talking one correctional facility up in New York. Okay. We know for a fact, right, that there were at least 5, 6, and then yourself.
And that's all in Voices from
And,
Within. That's not
and,
only in a prison. That's just within that one group
yeah,
of 11.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And people do not think that this actually occurs. And we hear the stats. We hear the stats about, there's an estimated on a conservative level, an estimated 200,000 people within the United States institutions, correctional institutions that are innocent. And that's being extremely conservative. Um, and I believe I actually am I feel like that number is much higher, especially when we sit here and talk about Sing Sing and you did your time there. It's crazy. I want to ask you, why are there so many people in one facility that are innocent?
I'll tell you that the reason why you hear about Sing Sing is because it's Sing Sing, it's notoriety, it's famous, it's the prison that was in all the movies. So we get the media, we get the outlet, we get Dan Slepian, we get Lester Holt, we get all these great people that are interested in what's going on behind the wall, and they bring our stories to life. But there are just as many innocent people in Attica. There are just as many innocent people in Clinton. They're just near the Canadian border, so they don't get the coverage. Sing Sing just happens to be a very progressive prison along the lines of Green Haven. Those are the two most progressive prisons in New York State. And you always end up with think tanks because you end up with people in those prisons who have been in prison over 10 years, 15 years, and they're looking for something different. They're looking for something better. So that's how the college programs got started. That's how all the organizations got started. That's how all of these positive programming models get started, because you have veterans that have been in there who decide, I'm not just going to do this 25 years and go to the board. We need to start a HIV/AIDS awareness program, or we need to start a healthy relationship program. And then they'll get civilians involved, which is how Hudson Link started. Hudson Link for higher education in prison. That's our degree granting program. Rehabilitation Through the Arts. Osborne started years before. That was a guy named Osborne, who was the warden of Sing Sing, who decided we need to do something more than just punish and beat them. So he created something called the Osborne Association that still exists to this day. And this was back in, like, I don't know, the 30s or something, but it's very old. But I think we hear more about Sing Sing because, you know, there was Mickey Rourke, and there was Tupac, and there was Frank White, the King of New York. There's all these movies that were shot in Sing Sing. We've done TED Talks in Sing Sing and TEDx events. We've done events with Ice-T for his TV show. Like, Sing Sing is famous. So you get to get a peek behind the curtain as audience members. You get to see what's going on in Sing Sing. But there are just as many people. Like you said, 200,000 is conservative. I know personally 12 people who either are doing time or did time for something they didn't do. And we all know who did it. Like, it's not just that. Yeah, we know who committed the crime. And if we know, the police probably know. It doesn't matter. I know 12 people who are doing time or have done time for crimes they didn't commit, and we all know who did it.
Look at the Palladium case, the one that they made famous. They knew
Yes.
for a decade
Yes.
who committed this crime.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
It just, you said it earlier, it is so backwards to know that how quick you can get locked up. Okay? How quick you can get locked up with lies and half truths, but how long it can take you to get out with full truth right in front of you. And to me, it's so backwards. That is just, it makes no sense. People say all the time.
But I'm going to push back on that. It's not backwards. It's working exactly as they designed it. See, this is the problem I have with people, and it's not a problem with you. It's a problem in articulating what I'm trying to say most of the time. It's not malfunctioning. I have a friend named Kenyatta who loves to give an analogy. There's a machine in the basement of his house. You go to his house, it says it's a soda machine. Put in a quarter, we'll give you a soda. You put in a quarter, it gives you a grapefruit. You come back and tell Kenyatta, I thought this was a soda machine. He says it is a soda machine. You go back, you put another quarter in there, you get another grapefruit. You like, yo, the machine ain't working. And he was like, yes, it is. It's working just fine. Don't worry about it. It's a soda machine. That's how I look at the criminal legal system.
I like that.
I'll tell you anything. And this is Kenyatta Hughes. He's another member of Voices from Within. Kenyatta Emmanuel Hughes. I can tell you anything, but you can see with your own eyes what's happening. And that's what happens. Like, this system is working exactly the way it's designed. We're facing conservative rollbacks now in places like Texas and Georgia and Florida because, quote unquote, the George Floyd moment is over. You know, we've had enough of that. We're going back to the good old days. We're going to make America great again. We're going to put these people back in their place. So many states right now are trying to do criminal legal reform rollbacks because They realize there's a Jermaine Archer and there's a JJ Velasquez and there's a Lawrence Bartley, and the list goes on of people who have come home who are doing the right things. And if you give all of us a chance and we all come home and do the right thing, then where's your correction officer niece going to work? Where is, this is about job security now. It's no longer about public safety. If it was about public safety, we would be talking about college and prison, which is known to know number one factor in reducing the recidivism. We'd be talking about work release for people to come home and reacclimate to society instead of doing their time and being thrown out there when it's over. But we don't talk about that. We talk about truth in sentencing. We talk about tough on crime because it's really about job security. It's not, none of those things have been known to show public safety. The police officers never have to demonstrate numbers when they say we make the community safety. District attorneys don't have to do that. Only organizations that want to reform the legal system are called into account to say community violence intervention. How do we know it's working? We don't know policing is working, but they get the most money in the world.
Yeah. I mean, look at NYPD's budget, man.
NYPD, which is second only to California,
right,
in the nation, and we still got crazy. And then they say it's rates of crime, and my mayor right now is indicted. What happened to the tough on crime people? Trump was convicted. What happened to the tough on crime people? The system is working exactly the way it's supposed to work. It only accountable for certain people. It doesn't mean Trump. It doesn't mean Eric Adams. It means the little people.
Right. And you're right. You mentioned all those names yourself, JJ. What's happening is they think they're going to lock you guys up in a cage and, you're not going to make something of your life, and you all did, and you've all come out and you've exposed the system for what it truly is, and they don't like that.
No.
They don't like that, man.
And they thought we were going to come out as animals and reoffend. And there's
be
a
able to
LaRon
put you back
Rogers.
in.
We have LaRon Rogers, Robert Rose. Like the list goes on and on. The last one just came out from Voices from Within. His name is Julian Castillo. He did 31 years. He just came home last Wednesday, the 30th. And they don't like that because they want the sensationalism. You want the parolee that tries to rape a woman in the train station. Mm-hmm. You want the guy that gets caught for conspiracy to murder that committed 2 murders back in the 80s. They want to show that, and they can't. You're showing that when we are given an opportunity and we are given the right support, whether it's by families, civilians, or volunteers, or even the staff, because we have Michael Capra, superintendent, who came in and did not interrupt all the things that Brian Fisher started. Brian Fisher was the superintendent of Sing Sing when all of these programs started. He became the commissioner and sent Michael Capra to become the superintendent of Sing Sing to make sure, because that's his baby, that's his project. He doesn't want another superintendent to come in. He also knew Michael Capra came from security. He used to be a deputy security and a captain. Superintendent Fisher wasn't that. He was a civilian. So he said, I need someone that the rank and file is going to respect. So he put Michael Capra in there, and they allowed all these things to continue. I don't know what's going on now because COVID interrupted a lot of things and took away a lot of programs. And one thing we learned from docs is when they take a program away, you got to fight. It's hard to get it back. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But you're right. We are successful, and they are not liking it.
Well, I just, man, you're such an inspiration to me. I will say just me personally, because every time I talk to somebody that's been in prison, that's come out and changed their life, it just, for me, especially, I say it all the time. I mean, policing is its own world. I hate to use the word sometimes because I don't like to blanket. I don't like to put everybody in the same category, but policing for me, the best way I can describe it was like a cult, and they don't teach you certain things. Like they mold you and teach you what they want you to know in the police academies, and then when you get out, and you go to your field training, they feed you more of that, and that's just what you know. And that's how I was, man. That's all I knew. I was 18 years old when I first got into law enforcement. I was young, impressionable, and that's what I was fed, and that's all I knew. And for many years, man, I was involved in that, and I just didn't see this side of things. And I'll tell you, I mean, so many people think I'm crazy for doing what I do now. Think, oh, these guys deserve a second chance. What are you talking about? Programs in prison. And I'm like, listen, man, even if somebody went to prison for something they legitimately did, why? And especially Christians, man. This is one thing that blows my mind about Christians, because I grew up a Christian. I was around Christianity my entire life, and I'm in an area where Christianity is booming. Right? We talk about second chances, and how Jesus gave people second chances. My thought process is, why aren't we doing the same? You claim to be a Christian. You put your tie on. You go to church on Sunday morning, and you raise your hand and praise the Lord. Um, why is second chances not afforded to those that have been locked up, who have paid their debt to society? And that's what this was all foreign to me, and I'm learning so much through my journey, and talking to people like you, JJ Velasquez, Dan Slepian, Richard Miles, Tyrone Day, all these people that I have just come in contact with, and I'm so grateful, because uh, I say this all the time too, is that people like you are my newfound heroes. Um, I used to look at other people as heroes, like detectives who had the highest crimes that were solved, and cases that were solved, or convictions. And I'm like, well, that's all fine and dandy, especially if somebody needs it. um there's a whole nother side to this that people just don't realize is there. And that's why I just, and I'm so thankful for people like you. And I think it's amazing that you have um this background and this story, and now this platform to be able to stand up and tell this story. Um, I'm just thankful, man, and I applaud you for that. Um, so let me ask you this: uh, going forward, I know obviously you're dealing with your the appeals process and all that, but as far as your actual work that you're doing, um, if somebody wanted to become involved, help you out, or even just get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at the real Jermaine Archer. The real Jermaine Archer on Instagram. I don't have a problem putting out my email. My email is my name, Archer Jermaine 05 at gmail.com. I'm a public figure. If they Google me, 9 times out of 10, I am going to be the one that pop up first. There's a few other. There's a Jermaine Archer that's a professor. There's a Jermaine Archer that did time. But especially if they want to know a little bit more about me, they can Google Jermaine Archer TED Talk, and that'll lead them directly to me. And I did a TED Talk while I was in prison, and that'll also have links and everything, and they'll be able to connect with me. I want to say in my closing remark that I have to lift you up again, because this is something I have conversations with a lot of people about. I'm doing this work out of necessity. Like, this work impacts my life, my nephew's life, and everyone around me. I'm doing this work because I am directly impacted by this system, and I'll give my life to, upend it, so to speak, to bring about fairness and equity. I dedicate the rest of my life to bringing about equity. When I see someone else, I generally make sure I lift up that person who has done this by choice, because yes, what affected you is not going to affect everybody in your position. Your heartstrings were pulled. You realized it was unfair. You made a choice. A lot of people would just feel like, I'm just going to mind my business and go along. This is my career. This is what I'm going to do. I don't believe every cop is good. I don't believe every cop is bad. I believe there are a lot of law enforcement people that just, the 5-10% of the bad apples out there, they allow them to do what they do, and including the administrators, because they don't want to bring attention to themselves. They're not willing to be a martyr. So I'm going to do everything the right way, but I'm not. And I see that with a lot of correction officers inside. So when I see someone that takes a stand and says, you know what, this ain't right. You know what, I'm going to do, even if I can't up in the system, I'm going to do my part. I commend you for that, and I applaud you for that. This
Well,
won't be the last. we talk. I'm here.
No, definitely not, man. I want to stay connected. And here's the deal too. Um, I know plenty. I mean, I was around, I mean, since time I was 18, man. Matter of fact, even before that, my family was in law enforcement. Um, I have an uncle right now that's a very, I mean, he's a top law enforcement official in the county that I live in.
Mhm,
Um, we're not super close, um, but I grew up around law enforcement. That's why I wanted to get in it when I was 18 was because I thought I say this all the time too, man. Sometimes I feel like I say so many things over and over and over, but it's the truth. Um, when I was 18, I wasn't getting in law enforcement because I wanted to help people. I was getting in it because my family was in it and I thought it was cool. So it's the wrong reasons, right?
mhm,
But over time, uh, as I matured and I grew, my reasons started to change and they became the right reasons. But one thing is that when somebody stands up against a system, whether it doesn't matter, even if you have a uniform on and patches and badges, they're coming after you, man. I can tell you that because and what happens is they know that.
mhm,
Everybody in the system, specifically speaking cops, because that's the world I came from, they know that. They
mhm,
know that if they stand up, um, and say something that they could lose their job, they could lose their pension,
mhm,
and I'm not saying it's right because it's not. I'm just saying I know why cops don't stand up and say things because
mhm,
they've got families to feed, and I can tell you this from experience, man, this journey for me, and I'm not woe is me. I don't mean to come across that way because I didn't spend 22 years inside of a prison cell. So I my story, my story is my story, and it hurt me in my way. But what I can say is that um, just the little thing that happened to me, they came after me, and there's no telling had I stayed within law enforcement what exactly was going to happen. But um, these men and women, man, they stay in and they just toe the line because they know what'll happen if they say something. And
mhm,
um, you know, I wish it were different. I wish people asked me. I was on somebody's podcast a couple weeks ago, and they said, what is it about you that was so different?" I'm just real interested to know why it was you that stood up. And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'm not special. I know several whistleblower cops, but um, I don't know, man. It's just something within me that if we as law enforcement officers or public officials, whether you're a judge or prosecutor, we took an oath, man. And people trust us. And I think one of the worst violations of somebody's trust is when a public official um, does something nefarious or malfeasant to somebody of the public. And I just, man, I couldn't stand for it. And so that's why I stood up. And again, my journey hasn't been easy, man. I've struggled. There's been times where I've wondered, hey, how am I going to put food on the table? I can't go back into law enforcement. My career is ruined. People don't take, if I try to go apply somewhere, they're going to call my previous agency. My previous agency is going to say all this stuff about me that's untrue.
mhm,
And character assassination. My integrity's been questioned, and but I'm pushing hard on justice reform, legal reform, and police reform. And like I said, my platform isn't big, but at least I can lay my head on my pillow at night and know that what I'm doing is the right thing, and that I can help spread awareness. And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, shine light on it because there's just so many out there that I feel like are like me. They just don't fully realize, the impact that the system can have on somebody negatively. And that's why I like to bring That's why I wanted you on the show, man. You've got a story of perseverance, resilience. I mean, you don't have to do this fight that you're in right now, right? You even said it yourself. You've done your time.
No, I have to do it because I have nephews. I have to do it. That's
Well,
what
well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you could just easily say, "Man, this is too hard." Like,
oh yes, yes. I can
this is
walk
a
away.
lot of work. But I mean,
I
you're
can
not
walk away
only
from the legal battle. Yes, I see
right,
what you're
right.
saying.
You're not
Yeah,
only fighting for yourself, man, but you mentioned it, your nephews.
yeah,
So they can grow up and fight themselves. And
absolutely. And so
I
they don't
I
have
just
to fight as hard as I had to fight. Maybe I can lay down the foundation.
I appreciate that so much, um, about you, man, and having the courage to come on shows like mine and tell your story over and over and over. Um, just just if you impact one person, that's kind of that's what I think when I do this. If I can just touch one person, like one cop can watch my show and say, dang, this stuff is real. Just like me. It took Richard Miles to stand up and I was like, wow, I already
Hmm.
knew something was wrong, but Richard Miles is that person. That was the second aha moment for me that I was like, okay, this is the path I'm going down. So I'm thankful for you, man, and your courage. And we're connected now, man. We're family.
We are. We
As
are.
far as I'm concerned, and I actually look forward to maybe even connecting with you and maybe doing some programs together.
Sounds like a plan. We're gonna follow up. Now we will follow up. Um, let's brainstorm, let's touch base, just have, offline conversations and see where there's areas of alignment, see where we can figure some things out, whether it's online, whether it's Texas, whether it's New York, whether it's bringing in more people. Like we could just start talking about it and see where it's like, I'm sure when you walked out, you weren't sure this is what you wanted to do. Things happen organically. So I
Yeah.
think we just have an organic conversation, coffee, whiskey, whatever. Just have a talk one day and just figure out, where we going unofficial. Because I think most great ideas come from unofficial conversations, in my experience. Anyway, it's just like just have a chat. Let's just have a conversation, and then something to come up.
Want to thank each and every one of you for joining the Failing Justice podcast. What a great story with Jermaine Archer. Did time in Sing Sing Correctional Facility for a crime he didn't commit. Still fighting that even after his release. And these are just such amazing people that I am just proud to know and happy to have on the show. As I've always said, please like our show, share it, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell your family members. And if anybody's listening to this and you have been uh, uh, impacted negatively by the criminal legal system, um, and you have a story to tell, contact us, failingjustice.org. You can reach us. You can see below the screen, failingjustice.org, on all social media platforms at failing the number one justice. And you can follow me personally at fj.founder. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
It's not just an organization, it's a call to action. Join us on this journey, satisfaction. Dismantle barriers, build with passion. For a future where justice is not a fraction. Yeah, failing justice. Yeah.